Hello again. I'm Jane Alalibo, your English teacher. The lesson we'll be taking right now is present tense, still in grammatical accuracy. In our previous lesson, we learned about the past tense, and before that, we talked about verbs briefly. And what did I say verbs are? I said verbs are words which we use in describing our actions, the things we do every day. We also said verbs have tense forms, and these tense forms show or help us to talk about actions that we carry out at different times. Now, at the end of the class, I expect that you know how to form the present tense with different verbs. We have so many verbs in the English grammar, and of course I'll teach you that. And I also expect that you know how to use the present tense correctly when you talk with your friends, your parents, different people, and also when you write. Now into our lesson. We said we use the present tense in different situations. One of them is when we talk about things that we do regularly, things that we do from time to time. It could even be a habit. Can you think of something that you do every day? What do you do? Well, I eat every day. I take my bath every day. I brush my teeth every day. Now, how do we form the present tense? The present tense is very, very simple to form. In fact, it is the simplest tense form. We form the present tense using the verb in its original form. Verbs describe actions. So let's list some actions that we carry out. You watch TV, you talk, you walk, you sit. In the present tense, we use these verbs just the way they are. We don't have to add anything or remove anything, except in special occasions, which we are going to learn about. Remember our first example. I brush my teeth every day. Brush is used in its main form. We did not add or remove anything. Now let's look at more examples. I watch cartoon every evening. I live with my grandparents. I go to church every Sunday. What do I do every Sunday? I go to church. They walk to school together every day. We sit together in the classroom. That's the present tense, talking about things that we do regularly or repeatedly. Now, remember I said we form the present tense using the verb in its main form, except in special occasions. And one of those special occasions is when we talk about the third person singular. Now, I, talking about myself, is the first person singular. You, that is talking to you directly, is the second person singular. And the third person singular is talking about another person. When we talk about another person, which is the third person singular, we add s to the verb. Example, play. We've been using verbs in their main and original form, but when you're talking about another person, you add s, making it plays. Let's illustrate this now. For the first person, you use the verb in its main form. I play. For the second person singular, we use the verb in its main form still. That is, I can say you play every day. But now when talking about another person, the third person singular, we add s, which we just learned. So we say he plays or she plays every day. The same goes for the plural. The plural talks about more than one. So if I'm talking about myself and my friends, I can say we play every day. If I'm talking about you, that is talking to you directly and your friends, I can say you play every day, or you all play every day. When talking about other people, now not one like we learned here, talking about more than one person, maybe 5 people, talking about them, this time we do not add s. So what do you see as different? We add s only when talking about the third person singular. But when talking about the third person plural, that is more than one, we do not add s. I hope you get that. Let's take a look at this. He play football. That is wrong. It doesn't sound right. Does it? No. He plays football. Now it is only in this situation that we add s to the verb when talking about another person. We are going to go through our examples now. Father reads the newspaper every day. We're talking about father, not talking to father directly. So we add s to the verb. Auntie Zainab works in a restaurant. Mr. Tolu sells exercise books. Amina speaks her dialect very well. She writes stories for the school magazine. Musa rides his bicycle to school. You add s when talking about another person, which is the third person singular. In our lesson on past tense, we learned that verbs that end with the letter y are very special because we don't form the past tense by adding just s. In some situations, we replace y with I and we add es from the past tense. Now we do almost the same thing for the present tense. When we have verbs that end with the letter y, we replace y with I and then we add es. Some examples of these verbs that end with letter y are cry, envy, study, and tidy. So to put cry in the present tense, that is when talking about another person, what do? We replace the letter y with I and then we add es, making it cries. For example, my baby brother cries a lot. Now there is an exception to this rule with the letter y, and I'll teach you about it as we go on with the lesson. But first, let's look at examples of these words in sentences. She envies her sister. Tolu studies very hard. Obi tidies his room before going to school. Remember, we said there is an exception to this rule on using the letter y. And what is that? When we have a word that ends with the letter y, which comes after a vowel in the verb, we do not replace letter y with I or add es. We just add s. What are vowels? The vowels we have in the alphabet are A, E, I, O, and U. So let's look at this word here. Pay. Pay ends with y, right? As we can see, it ends with y. But the letter before y is a vowel. It's A. So we do not replace y with I in this situation. Rather, we just add s, making it pays. That is the rule in the English grammar. Play ends with y, but a vowel comes before it. Say also ends with y, but a vowel comes before it. So what do? We add s. Let's see our examples. My father pays my school fees before resumption. He pays. The letter before Y is a vowel, so we just add S. Daniel plays football very well. The headmistress always says that. Now we also have these other very special verbs, and they are verbs that end with CH, SH, double S, and O. When we want to use these verbs, we add ES to them. For example, teach. Teach ends with CH, as you can see. So, to talk about someone else in the present tense, we do not just add S this time, we add ES, and it becomes teaches. Wash ends with SH. We add ES, and it becomes washes. Miss ends with double S. We add ES, and it becomes Mrs. Go ends with an O. We add ES, and it becomes goes. Let's see these words in sentences. Miss Chidima teaches us English. Funke washes her clothes by herself. She misses her mother a lot. Musa goes to the mosque on Fridays. Goes. That's how we form the present tense for words that end with CH, SH, double S, and O. Now, at the beginning of my lesson, I said unlike the past tense, we use the present tense in other situations, not just to talk about things we do regularly. We also use the present tense to talk about general facts or truths. These are things that remain true everywhere you go and at every time. They don't change. For example, the eagle flies higher than every other bird. The president of Nigeria lives at Aso Rock. A tiger runs faster than an elephant. The cock crows in the early hours of the morning. These are things that cannot change. That is just how they are, and that is how they will remain. Can you tell me why we used flies instead of fly? We can see that in all the verbs that we used in these sentences, we have IES here, S over here, S here, and S. Remember, we learned that when you talk in the third person singular, you add S or ES to the verb. And in the case of the verb Y, coming after a consonant, we replace Y with I and we add ES. In these sentences, you can see that we are talking about other people or other things. That is, we talk in the third person singular. Another situation in which we use the present tense is when we are talking about things that will happen in the very near future. That is, things that will happen in like an hour or tomorrow, which is the next day, or if it's afternoon now, things that will happen in the evening. That is the very near future. Examples. Our maths lesson begins in an hour. When talking about things that will happen in the very near future, you add S also. The boat leaves by 12 p.m. The holiday starts tomorrow. I hope you have learned a lot on this lesson. Now, to remind us of everything we have learned, we're going to do a brief summary. What was the first thing we said about the present tense? We said we use the present tense to talk about things that we do regularly or things that we do repeatedly. It could be a habit. We also learned that we use the present tense to talk about things that remain true. That is, facts, general facts, things that will not change. And we also use the present tense to talk about things that will happen in the very near future, in an hour, later in the day, or tomorrow. And we also learned how to form the present tense. How do we form the present tense? We form the present tense using the verb in its original or main form. That is just the way it is. But in some special situations, like when talking in the third person singular, we add s to the verb or we add es. That is the end of our lesson on the present tense. I hope you now know exactly how to form the present tense with different verbs, and also know how to correctly use the present tense in speaking with your friends and everyone around you, and also in writing. That's the end of our lesson on the present tense. Bye.